The UK approved the use of a COVID-19 vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University on Wednesday, paving the way for a serious ramping up of the country's immunisation programme. Britain has ordered 100 million doses of the vaccine, which is easier to store and distribute than several of its rivals. For many, the news couldn't come soon enough, as Britain battles a major winter surge of coronavirus infections, driven in part by a new, more infectious variant of the virus. On Tuesday, more than 53,000 new cases of COVID-19 were reported, the highest number since mass testing began in mid-2020. This pushed the government to be on the verge of introducing tougher lockdown measures. A report in The Times on Wednesday suggests millions more people will be placed under stay-at-home orders. The paper reported that hospitals in London are running out of intensive care beds and are drawing up plans to send patients to other parts of the country. There remains a debate about whether children should go back to school in January. Britain is the first country in the world to approve the AstraZeneca-Oxford vaccine. Health Minister Matt Hancock said it was a moment to celebrate British innovation and a time to be hopeful. He said the UK could now see its route out of the pandemic. The regulatory approval is a boost for AstraZeneca and Oxford, which have been accused of a lack of clarity about the results from late-stage trials.
The United States reported its first confirmed case of a highly infectious coronavirus variant on Tuesday. It was discovered in a patient in Colorado and came as President-elect Joe Biden criticized the current administration's vaccination rollout. Biden warned it could take years for most Americans to be vaccinated at the rate they're being distributed now. About 2 million people have been vaccinated, well short of the 20 million promised by outgoing Republican President Donald Trump by the end of the year.
The Trump administration's plan to distribute vaccines is falling behind, far behind.
Shortly after Biden made his remarks in Delaware on Tuesday, Colorado Governor Jared Polis confirmed the first case of the coronavirus variant, the same variant first detected in Britain. The infected patient was a man in his 20s with no recent travel history and is currently in isolation, Polis said in a statement. His office said no close contacts to the individual have been identified so far. Scientists believe the variant is more contagious than other identified strains. So far, the variant reared its head in a number of European countries, Canada, Australia, India, South Korea, and Japan, among others. Biden is set to assume the presidency on January 20th and said his administration will prioritize a speedy vaccine rollout, expanding testing, and funding states to help reopen schools safely.
Sydney's New Year's Eve celebrations with dazzling firework displays bursting from the Sydney Harbour Bridge will be more subdued this year, as new social distancing restrictions were announced on Wednesday in a bid to curb a new coronavirus cluster. Household gatherings were limited to just 5 people, and public gatherings have been capped at 30. Residential care facilities were also closed to visitors. New South Wales State Premier Gladys Berejiklian urged people to stay at home for New Year's celebrations to avoid a super-spreading event.
But we don't want New Year's Eve to be a situation where undetected cases, people who may be in the very early stages of the disease and not know they've got it, not know they're infectious, unintentionally give it to those closest to them.
18 new COVID-19 cases were reported on Wednesday, the biggest daily increase in a week. Half were linked to an outbreak in Sydney's northern beaches that's now grown to more than 100 people over the past week. Another cluster has also sprung up on the inner west side of Sydney, with 6 members of an extended family testing positive. Live viewings of this year's fireworks will be limited only for people with confirmed hospitality bookings and a permit. And as for the fireworks, the usual 9 p.m. display has been cancelled altogether, and their annual midnight display will be reduced to just 7 minutes.
An attack has hit an airport in Yemen shortly after the arrival of the country's prime minister, members of its newly formed government, and the Saudi ambassador. This was the moment the attack hit as officials disembarked from their plane. Dozens of people have been killed or wounded, although the ambassador and cabinet members were reportedly evacuated safely. A Reuters photographer was at the airport in the city of Aden The security source says 3 mortar shells hit. It's not immediately clear who was behind the attack. The government officials on the plane represent a new power-sharing agreement between the Yemeni president, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, and southern separatists. The city has been plagued by violence between those two factions, but there are also the 2 main groups backed by Saudi Arabia's military coalition, which is itself fighting the civil war against the Houthis, who align with Iran. In related news, the United States government this week approved a new $290 million weapons sale to Saudi Arabia in an effort to end the war. Yemen still remains the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
With a call for both sides to look forward to a new chapter in their relationship, top EU officials signed the Brexit trade deal on Wednesday. The treaties struck on December the 24th will preserve Britain's tariff and quota-free access to the European Union's 450 million consumers. Against a backdrop of European Union flags, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and EU Council President Charles Michel signed the agreement. The text was then sent off to London on a British Royal Air Force plane for Prime Minister Boris Johnson to add his signature. The British Parliament will also debate and is expected to pass the deal. One copy of the agreement is to be returned to Brussels, their copy bearing the bloc's golden stars on the blue leather folder. Britain formally left the EU nearly a year ago. The new partnership will regulate ties from January the 1st on everything from trade to transport, energy links to fishing. After both sides have signed, the deal will be in place until the end of February, pending final approval by the European Parliament to make it permanent.
10 Hong Kong activists who attempted to flee to Taiwan by boat were sentenced in mainland China for up to 3 years in jail on Wednesday for illegally crossing the border. The case has drawn international attention and concern over the defendants' treatment. The group all had faced charges in Hong Kong from last year's anti-government protests and were travelling away from the city when they were intercepted on August 23rd, allegedly en route to self-ruled Taiwan. They have been held virtually incommunicado in a mainland Chinese prison since then. A court in the Chinese city of Shenzhen, just over the land border with Hong Kong, found 8 of the defendants guilty of illegally crossing the border and sentenced them to 7 months in jail and a fine of over $1,500. 2 more were also found guilty of organising the crossing and faced 2 and 3 years in jail. The court said all 10 had pled guilty to their crimes. After the verdicts were announced, Hong Kong police said that 2 minors in the groups, now aged 17 and 18, had been handed over and would appear in court in Hong Kong after completing quarantine for coronavirus. The mainland prosecutor said they would not be charged after the 2 minors had willingly admitted to their guilt. However, Hong Kong police said they may face additional charges when they return home. Rights group Amnesty International expressed concern over the safety of the defendants in the mainland prison system. Family-appointed lawyers were denied access to their clients, and their government-appointed lawyers were not available for comment.
More than 295% in 2020. On Wednesday, the cryptocurrency hit a fresh record of over $28,500. The rally comes amid heightened interest from bigger investors. The world's most popular digital currency was last up 3.7%. Since breaking the $20,000 mark for the first time on December the 16th, it's surged by nearly half. Bitcoin has increasingly seen demand from larger US investors. They're attracted to its perceived inflation hedging qualities and the potential for quick gains. There are also expectations it could become a mainstream payments method. Previous worries about the nature of the virtual currency market have also been soothed by tighter regulation in the US. But many investors remain wary. Bitcoin is still prone to extreme fluctuations in value.